What's up, my friend?
Dialing in. How quaint is that?
You're not dialing in.
I sent you a note and said, I'm dialing in. And I'm like,
did you?
Yeah, it reminds me of the rotary telephones. Reminds me of rotary telephones.
I remember rotary telephones. I remember dialing in. I remember 9600 baud.
This week on the Pilote podcast, Cory Smith and I get into the weird world of virtual beings. From VTubers to blockchain AIs whose morality changes based on interaction and behavior. Buckle up. So
we got a big show today. I'm excited. I'm excited. You warned me. So I went and read it.
I like to think that I'm maybe got my finger on the pulse of what's going on, but sometimes I feel like I've been living under a rock. You know, how things that just move really fast, and it's like, yeah, I think I know what's going on, and then you think, no, I've missed a whole bunch of stuff that's going on, and there's some strange things going on, and there's some really, really, really strange things going on in the world of virtual beings.
There's too many things going on at once.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't track it all. But I have to admit, when you said, hey, I got a big one today, you better go look at it. And I went and looked at it. I'm like, what the shit is this? I had actually not heard of this. But it's a really interesting topic. So I had to go out and look it up.
You've heard about it. So strap into your seats, people. It's going to be a bumpy ride tonight. If this is new to me and Cory, then it's going to be new to you as well, I imagine.
Yeah, I had heard of it. I didn't know that it was as pervasive and in use as it was.
You are a Generation X person, and you know who Max Headroom is.
Oh, of course.
Right. So let's step back and say what we're talking about. We're talking about.
Let's say what we're talking about. Yeah,
we're talking about virtual beings. This is and big props to Justin McAfee. There's an article which we'll share in the show notes, which goes into this in insane detail. I mean, we spoke on one of our earlier podcasts around the digital dogs, the virtual companions, and we'll get into that in a second because they're one of the types of virtual beings that we're going to talk about. But we're going to get into some heavy stuff tonight. So there's 3 or 4 types of virtual beings. And the first type of virtual being, which is, I guess, the most normal, and yet none of this is normal, they're called VTubers. And Max Headroom, 1985, which I guess most people who are in the virtual being business weren't necessarily alive in 1985.
Probably not.
The definition of a VTuber are virtual beings who stream their life. On popular video platforms, VTubers are humans using consumer-ready motion video capture technologies and character creation software. So basically, these are real people who are converting their, I guess, voice and actions into a digital format.
Right, like their likeness. Their digital likeness.
Our digital likeness. They may actually not be anything like the character at all, which if you go back to 1985, that's what Max Headroom was. He was an animated newsreader, effectively. Was he on MTV or was he on somewhere?
Well, he started as a commercial. Remember, Pepsi commercial.
I think the Pepsi commercial came after his TV show.
Are you sure? I thought the Pepsi commercial came first and then it became a TV show because it was so popular. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
1985 was a long time ago, and
you were 10. Well, I was 12. Let's bring this on a couple of decades. We've got VTubers. I guess you've got to be post YouTube to be a VTuber. There's a character called Kizuna AI. In 2016, she made her debut on YouTube. She was able to grow her fan base to 2 million subscribers within 10 months.
That's crazy.
this is where it starts to get super creepy, right? VTubers, this is a quote, VTubers rely on an ability to tap into the power of fan interaction. Remember, they're not real. Parasocial relationships, pseudonymity and storytelling, creating vibrant characters that tend to be more interesting than their human streamer counterparts. That
Two things.
Whole paragraph is just, I had to read it like 5 times to even get my head around it. I had to Google what parasocial relationships are. Did you know what they are?
Well, only since you told me. And then when I read it, I was like, what?
Okay.
I'll let you share the description. It's really freaky.
Right. So parasocial relationships are one-sided relationships where one person extends emotional energy, interest, and time to the other party. The persona is completely unaware of the other's existence. Parasocial relationships are most common with celebrities, organizations, and sports teams or television stars. To me, that sounds like civilization has already imploded.
Yes, it's reality television.
Although reality television, at least the reality stars feed off their fans' fandom. This is even worse. This is like a virtual character who doesn't even know that the fans exist.
Everything about this sentence is bizarre as I read it again. Pseudonymity. You're not completely anonymous because it's a digital likeness of you. So you're like not completely anonymous. You're pseudonymous. You're creating a character that's more interesting than yourself.
Or than anyone else on YouTube. What we're saying is that YouTube fans would rather watch 3D digital unreal characters than real people. Today, there are more than 16,000 VTubers, up for just 1,000 in March of 2018. So in 5 years, it's gone from 1,000 virtual YouTubers to 16,000 virtual YouTubers.
This is bizarre. There was a point in time years ago, maybe back in 2016, 2018, where like people would create personas and live whole other lives in things like Second Life.
Yeah.
Remember that game?
Yeah.
But it was interactive. This is like the next level of like where you're virtually voyeuristic.
Yeah. So it's basically if an NPC character in a game got their own TV show, which...
Yes, that's exactly right.
This is the most normal type of virtual being we're going to be talking about tonight.
I know. That is the crazy thing. But, okay, so there's this aspect of it, which is, to me, and I'm an old dude, it's weird.
It's a cultural thing, though, because a lot of these are Japanese or from Asia, like Korea or Japanese or whatever. It seems to have originated and be very popular in the East. And
sure, and that tracks. Like culturally, like this tracks with culturally kind of like what they like or are interested in, anime and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, I've never heard of any of these people. So popular VTubers include Inugami Koroni, Niana's Iron Mouse, Kiruku Koku, Code Miku, AI. And I mean, we are living in a parallel universe at this point.
I know.
Okay. The next category of virtual beings are virtual influencers. As if real life influencers weren't horrible enough, we now have
Oh, I gotta watch my language. If they weren't bad enough, can you imagine being like somebody of this generation and going home to tell your parents is like, I got a job, I'm an influencer.
Yeah, and my job has just been replaced by a cartoon.
Man.
So a virtual influencer is a digital character created in computer graphics software, then given a personality defined by a first-person view of the world and made accessible on media platforms for the sake of influence. They are often used by brands, and this is where it gets interesting as a marketeer, and I know you'll have some interesting ideas on this. They're often used by brands as spokespeople for their products, CGI-generated personas that can be anyone, do anything, go anywhere in the virtual world. They are not limited by virtual constraints, so can be in more places than at once. They never tire and they never go off script.
I could see to use your term, I could see the utility in this, the value if influencers are important to your marketing strategy. And I could see the value in this if those influencers have influence over an audience that you want to use. Like, sure.
Some of these influencers make $12 million a year.
Say what?
Lil Miquela. Virtual influencers like Lil Miquela have almost 3 times the engagement rate of their in real life counterparts. And brands love them because they can control over their identity. Remember in our very, very first podcast, we were talking about Tom Brady and other celebrities and NFTs and stuff like that. And the downside of having a celebrity endorse your brand is they go and do something stupid. But that doesn't happen if they're a 3D animated character that you're controlling the script for.
Right. You don't have to worry about them going to go slap a celebrity at the Oscars or something.
Right. Exactly.
What are they selling? What are they promoting?
Mostly fashion. They're putting them in designer dresses and having them wear designer handbags, and fashion brands seem to be where most of them are making their money. But there are some that are non-human characters that represent brands. I don't know if you remember, it's a very, very UK thing. Pepparami. Do you know what Pepparami is?
No. So
Pepparami is this sort of salami, but it's a tiny little stick of salami.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about now.
And then they used to have these ads of the Pepparami stick, which was an animated character of salami running around being very angry. If you're a brand that has a mascot or a non-human representative, I guess you could create a virtual version of that and turn them into a influencer.
You could. Oddly, in the kind of evolution of things, not surprising.
I think from a brand point of view, it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, the Michelin Man, he's got a name, right? I can't remember the Michelin Man's name. He's got a name.
Right. It's just, you just remember him as the Michelin Man.
Yeah, it's the Michelin Man. In the old days, you just had the Michelin Man, and he was a 2D representation of a character that sat next to the Michelin brand. And in a Web3 metaverse kind of world, the Michelin Man could be a real thing. Fleshed out character in 3D who talks, acts, and represents the Michelin brand. And imagine if McDonald's turned all of their characters into virtual beings. So you've got Ronald McDonald's a virtual being, the Hamburglar is a virtual being.
Grimace.
That whole franchise is just set up for virtual beings running around the metaverse being McDonald's.
And not to make it about this, but like most famously, brand-wise, Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, Disney, of course, yeah. Just while we're thinking about it, I have a question. Why are most of the VTubers and virtual influencers female? Does it have a relationship to the fact that the metaverse is full of males and empty?
I think that's one for the audience.
Most of these virtual characters are female.
Yeah, and I think that you kind of answered your own question. Yeah, well, I think that there's probably some nuance to the answer to that question, and that we're simple. That my simplistic mind is oversimplifying it. But I'm curious to hear what other people think.
I think that Occam's razor is in effect here.
Yes, that's my suspicion.
So this is where it starts to get weird. If you thought we've done weird so far, we haven't even touched the surface of weird.
Attention, spoilers ahead.
So the next group of these virtual beings, autonomous entities, which is a really broad level kind of description, but there's different types of autonomous entities. At the broadest level, machine learning, simulation of intelligence.
Yeah.
And it can include anything from non-playable characters, sometimes called NPCs, to AI companions, which we talked about the digital dogs.
Right. Chatbots.
And if you want to get into the super creepy end of this, we're talking about digital reincarnations of the deceased.
Yes. And you know what, man? I have to bring this up. This came up years ago. There was a startup during the internet boom, it never happened, that wanted to use AI to do exactly this, where they would take photos and your memories and create digital, like not interactive, but like video AIs of like recordings that you may have of your deceased relative.
Oh no, they're getting interactive. So we'll get into that in a second, but the technology is caught up with the freakiness, and we'll get into that.
I know. Like, but just to think about like producing a video of like and like, of course, think about like the late 90s, early 2000s level of technology of like your dead grandmother in a video.
There were like music videos that they put Satchmo and Frank Sinatra into videos with modern day stars and stuff. So, and deep fakes is obviously something that we're going to have to get our head around, but several types of autonomous entities. The first one is AI companionship, and we talked about digital dogs in one of our episodes, but this goes back to Tamagotchis, right? Virtual pets.
Right.
And that's one of the most...
I think these are a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So do I, especially when you think about what they're calling the loneliness pandemic.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of lonely people in the world. Most of them work in Web3. There's companies like Republica who are providing friendly chatbots. There's Hybrid providing custom 3D bots to simulate romantic partnership. Remember last week we said the adult industry haven't really got into Web3. Well, maybe they have.
Here they come.
The AI market is expected to grow by a lot, $13 billion in the next year or so. I guess if you don't have anyone to talk to and you can talk to an AI being, I think there needs to be a bartender model, right? What do you think? There needs to be an AI bartender.
Right, like you just like tell your sorrows to.
Yeah, which has always been you just sit up and the barman, he won't say anything, he'll just listen while you talk and nod, and there's a business. And I think there's a business plan right there. The AI bartender.
Well, it won't be long before. I mean, and I don't mean this as a joke. I mean, I'm sure that if that's the next step, the next step beyond that would be an AI therapist or a counselor.
Digital companions, I can see that kind of working. And like I said, the digital dogs I quite like. I think that's a cool idea. And in an AR world, not a VR world, but an AR world, where you can see your digital dog in the same space that you're in, that's pretty cool. Actually,
that is pretty cool.
I think that's super cool. Where are we up to?
Digital reincarnation.
Digital reincarnation. I think there's been a lot of science fiction around this. So there was a 2014 film called Transcendence with Johnny Depp. Did you ever see that one?
Yeah, sure.
A little bit creepy, but these things are always creepy when they try and, upload your memories and into the cloud and be able to interact with it. If you're into your Neal Stephenson books, which I am, his second to last book, I think it was, which is called Fall, Dodge, and Hell, which is a sequel to another one. That is all around at the cost of maintaining an AI into the future.
Right.
So if you were to upload your entire interaction as a human being into the cloud and then have that work as an AI, how much would it cost to maintain that AI? Especially if you have billions of AIs who are all trying to do that. It's fine if there's one or two, but if you've got a billion people on the planet and every single one of those people is trying to be replicated in the cloud as an AI, then that's going to take a ton of computing power. So an AI could be trained on the digital footprints of an individual to replicate their behaviors after they die in what is known as digital reincarnation. With enough text messages, social media posts, and videos used as training data, a neural network could learn to simulate the speech and mannerisms of the deceased while presenting themselves in a photorealistic CGI model of their likeness as a chatbot.
I think that's absolutely doable with today's technology, but like the question is, would you want to? And I would say that probably there is a subset of people that would probably want to.
Yeah, my question is, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Correct. I agree with that.
That would be weird, but it's possible and getting more possible. I don't know whether I cut this out of one of the podcasts that we did recently, but the other version of this is what they call virtual world agents, digital beings that act on your behalf in digital worlds. It comes back to my controversial contention that the metaverse is empty and boring and full of young men playing Dungeons and Dragons in their bedrooms, populating the virtual worlds with highly intelligent NPCs, which maybe or maybe not be based on real world females.
Well, I mean, that may be a good thing to have happen at the beginning.
So I got this email from Decentraland saying they were going to do this Le Mans 24-hour.
Oh yeah, I saw that
in NFT, and I'm like, oh, Le Mans cars. I'm into Le Mans cars. I like Le Mans cars. I'm going to click on that link and I'm going to see what that's all about. So I clicked on the link and I was transported into a virtual world of emptiness. Cory, have you
ever been to Decentraland? Yeah,
have you ever been into the metaverse?
Yeah, absolutely. I have an account.
It's boring.
It is.
I clicked the link because I'm like, oh, Le Mans cars. I like Le Mans cars. So I went in there and I found myself in a virtual gallery full of Porsches and stuff, and they were sitting on the walls, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. But I was there on my own. I was the only avatar in the space. Why did I do that? Why wouldn't I just go to a gallery? Why didn't I just go to Le Mans? I'd rather go to Le Mans than go to a virtual gallery in Decentraland on my own to look at a picture of a Porsche.
They're experimenting. I was just having this conversation with somebody, as we have had many times, about the Web3s and the metaverses, of like, everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon and say, I've done something in the metaverse. And, you know, it's just some kind of like Web 2 thing that they've made for Web 3. But they could say, plant a flag and say, we've done something. Nobody goes to it. It's not terribly exciting, but they've done something.
Le Mans is a historical, iconic brand that has hundreds of thousands of fans around the world. And Porsche is also an iconic brand that has hundreds of thousands of fans around the world. And between the two of them, they've done something in the metaverse, which is just
forgettable.
How did anyone sign off on that? How did anyone go, yeah, this is a good idea? I think maybe it was the metaverse intern.
It was the metaverse intern. It was somebody's nephew.
I think there's a whole bunch of brands out there who've gone, we don't get the metaverse, get an intern. Get us an intern. Get us a 17-year-old who can tell us all about the metaverse and get them to run our brand strategy. And
I call them all, I've named all the metaverse / Web3 interns Billy. Let's get Billy to do it. Billy will figure it out.
Billy sounds like an old name. You need a new name for the metaverse intern.
What's a good new name? When my kids were young, everybody was naming their kids all these ridiculous, like Hutch, like they were naming them after furniture, or or spices or something. I don't even know what they name kids now.
I don't know. Thor, given the Marvel universe, there probably is a whole generation.
That'll be the next thing. Thor or Star-Lord. This is my son, Star-Lord.
Bilbo. There you go. It's not Billy, it's Bilbo.
Bilbo. We'll get Bilbo to do it. The one with the hairy feet. Did you say to yourself, as you were standing there looking at this, you know what this place really needs is a virtual bar or a bank.
Well, yeah. Or females, maybe.
Or females.
Anything.
Yeah, come on, dude. You never find a female in the metaverse, or very few, and certainly not in a metaverse version of a Le Mans.
Oh, come on. I think this is a perfect opportunity for the Pirelli girls.
Well, yeah, they were paid to be there. Sure, they would be there.
No, they can be virtual agents. They can be 3D virtual agents of themselves.
Very good point. The Pirelli girls, the Hawaiian Tropic girls, remember them?
Exactly. So they can create virtual versions of the Hawaiian Tropic girls, the Pirelli girls, and all the other girls in motorsport, and they can just wander around the motorsport metaverse.
Man, brilliant. Totally missed opportunity. I still got all the photos of the Pirelli girls, but thank you.
Anyway, we need to pitch Pirelli. We need to go to Pirelli and say, you need to give your Pirelli girls a digital twin in the metaverse to wander around the empty art gallery for Le Mans, because that's the future. Thanks for listening. Want to get the latest episode as soon as it goes live on a Sunday? Subscribe via your favorite podcast app. You can also get bookmarks and links to topics discussed on the show. Be part of the conversation on LinkedIn and other social media. I just got blocked on Twitter. I haven't been blocked on Twitter for a long time.
Why are you blocked on Twitter?
Not the entirety of Twitter, but there's an account which I have followed in the past called Nomad Capitalist, which is basically a company that works on behalf of digital nomads around the world. They've become a little bit more, shall we say, militant in the last couple of weeks.
Really?
And so I responded to one of their tweets, and they blocked me.
What?
They blocked me. I'm going to say snowflakes. Why are you complaining about people canceling debt when you help people pay no tax? Can't please everybody. In our little break there, I was just having a very weird thought. An online game in the metaverse where the Michelin Man battled the Pirelli girls.
Now, I like this idea.
Metaverse WrestleMania between the tire companies. It appeals to the Web3 crowd, the lonely boys in their bedrooms. They got nothing else better to do, so they can watch the Michelin Man fight the Pirelli girls in a metaverse style battle. Yeah, let's just continue the misogyny into the next generation, shall we?
Love it.
Let's get back to our virtual beings, and we're going to get into, if you thought that what you've heard so far is weird, we're going to get into the weirdest of them all now. I approach this with an open mind. I'm trying to understand how these things might work into the future. Let's get into what we call distributed personas. A distributed persona is a digital character that is managed by an open and permissionless community. Fans create content such as music, animation, videos, lore, and more using a character. Distributed personas may be autonomous in some form, such as AI artists, but are ultimately moderated by the community. You with me?
I'm following you.
So,
I mean, conceptually, intellectually, I understand the words that are coming out of your mouth.
All right. So the ones we've talked about before, we've got the virtual influencers, we've got the VTubers. The VTubers are basically real people that morph into a 3D format, but basically they're just inhabiting an avatar. So it's a real person inhabiting an avatar. Then we've got our virtual influencers, who are basically a character, like a cartoon character that is scripted and run by human beings. They're owned and operated by humans. These things, distributed personas, are artificial intelligences, but they don't have an owner so much as a community or a co-op which is running them. You like to use the word pejorative a lot, Cory. I'm not being pejorative, but I'm not sure that this thing is going to be understood in the deep south of America. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, so Hatsune Miku, a Japanese Vocaloid, and I don't know what that means. I'm going to have to look that up. A Japanese Vocaloid software voice bank released by Krypton Future Media in 2007. Vocaloid software allows users to synthesize the sound of singing by typing lyrics and inputting a melody. Because each Vocaloid has its own characteristics and are effectively separate singers, they are typically released with anthropomorphic characters, and the most successful which is Hatsune Miku herself. Okay, that's a little bit to digest, but let's go on. Let's see if we can get our heads around this. Hatsune Miku is a highly successful distributed software that has a decentralized community of creators making new songs and animations for the virtual being, earning over, wait for it, $120 million in total revenue through total music, merchandise, hologram concerts, and shareable media in the first 5 years. This model lends itself well to DAOs, which you've talked about, distributed autonomous organizations. Human creators release new music and dances, vote on content, canon, and collect revenues, community-owned treasury. Some distributed personas have begun experimenting with this idea. Do you get it?
Again, intellectually, yes, but no. I'm actually Googling this while we're talking about it. I'm looking at this now, and I still don't understand it.
So my guess is, so this is how I understand it. There is an AI which is owned by nobody, well, owned by a collective.
By a collective.
That allows you to put stuff into the AI. So if you've written a song, you can give that song lyrics to the AI, and the AI will sing that song. And if that song is viewed on YouTube by a million people, then you as the writer of that song and a part of the co-op will share in the royalties of the virtual artist who sang it. But anyone can submit a song to the virtual being singing the song.
Right. And they've got a profile, age 16. It's got a weight. It's got a weight. I just sent you a screenshot of
Female,
it.
right?
Of course.
Of course.
It's got a height and a weight. Favorite genre of music.
K-pop.
Favorite tempo and a best voice range.
Okay.
I can't say and have it be recorded what I'm thinking right now. But it's essentially WTF. You were right. This is the weirdest shit I've ever seen.
It gets weirder. No.
Corporate collaborations with Sega, Toyota USA, Google, and more.
Yeah, right.
Performing sold out 3D concerts worldwide with performances in Los Angeles, Taipei, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Tokyo. I'm like, I just don't know what to say. I just don't.
We're in the wrong business. We are in the wrong business, Cory.
I think we're smart guys, Dave. I really do. How do you even come up with the concept for this? But kudos to whoever did, because they're making money.
Now we're getting into the Web3 take on the virtual being, decentralized being. All right. So we've gone decentralized being. Now we're going into Web3 version of decentralized being. We're going to talk about Botto. Interesting name. For example, Botto is a decentralized autonomous AI artist controlled by the holders of a token called Botto. Token holders stake Botto to earn non-transferable voting power, which is used to vote on 350 AI-generated artworks each week.
Each week?
Yeah, 350 AI-generated artworks each week. At the end of each period, the piece with the most votes is auctioned on a super rare as an NFT, with process used to buy back and burn Botto tokens. To date, Botto is the highest performing gross artist of all time on the marketplace, with over $2 million in sales. Since creative AIs have the ability to infinitely create new works, human curation will play an important part in the role of the new economy. DAOs, distributed autonomous organizations, that manage the curation, distribution, promotion, and governance of distributed personas while benefiting from value creation will likely spawn a new age of AI-enabled or human-generated digital character productions. In other words, we are irrelevant, Cory. The AIs are building content, putting it out under their own AI brand, generating money from it, and it's not too long before they take over the world and we don't need to be here anymore.
Before we get to the taking over the world part, they're generating money. Does that mean we could create one of these and just kick back and collect a check?
Maybe.
All right, so we need to get into this.
There's 16,000 of them now, apparently, VTubers. I don't know how we cut through the noise. We need to represent ourselves in a 3D digital likeness that is not old white guys.
No, we need to niche market this thing. Listen, you and I are old marketers, buddy. We can think this through. There's a niche market for this.
So we just upload all of our thoughts and chat and texts and podcasts into an AI machine learning bot. I dread to think what might come out at the other end. You know, I've been in digital for 20 years. I've watched Max Headroom. I saw the original MTV video by Dire Straits, which was like the clunky animated Roblox, Minecraft, money for nothing video, right? I mean, I'm sure that Minecraft was basically based on the money for nothing video.
Well, you know, this has been one of those moments, this conversation where like this was just a corner of the internet metaverse technology that was like just kind of happening and I wasn't looking at it. This is crazy stuff. And some of it I see that, you know, I love your word of utility, the utility of this. And some of it is like
that there is a precedent in a pre-internet world, the Muppets.
Interesting. One
of the reasons I love Fallout 4 is the building element of it. I don't know if you played that game, but there's a massive element of it is being able to just construct stuff and create your own world as opposed to having to just fight people all the time. If the metaverse is only blokes fighting each other with samurai swords, then it's only going to be blokes. I want to finish on the virtual beings and I'll come back
right.
to
I like we
If you thought what we've been saying so far has been weird, we're going to get even weirder.
What? Wait, there's weirder than this.
What's weirder than this? Well, consider on-chain creatures that live and adapt to external variables using Oracle data feeds.
Now that, back up. Explain that to me.
On-chain, which is blockchain,
right?
Creatures that live and adapt to external variables using Oracle data feeds. Next one. Game characters that morally evolve over time based on actions of a user across multiple games.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very Westworld.
But yeah, this is where it gets super interesting. But it also gets to the point where you're getting into AI consciousness territory. If you can't tell the difference between the virtual being and a real being, you know, the old Turing test.
Yeah.
If you ask a robot if it's conscious and it says yes.
If you don't know what a Turing test is, you probably don't read enough.
But if you're working in Web3 on AI and you don't know what a Turing test is, then that's a bit worrying.
Yes. You know, we talked about this last one. I'm going to read it again, which is game characters that morally evolve over time based upon the actions of the user across multiple games. Now, like, just the idea of that is, to me, interesting. But like the net of that may not be good.
But imagine like if you could apply that theory to social media.
There's good applications of that, and there's bad applications of that. So, like, can you redeem yourself from that? And that, like, there's that aspect of it. There's where does the learning end? The evolution of that end? Like, there's all kind of questions that begs to ask.
Which comes back to identity. You know,
yes.
if your digital identity is the sum part of your behavior in various interactions online, that is part of your ID.
But like, and then social capital becomes part of your identity. A lot of interesting stuff in that, man.
Especially if you're pseudonymous and you've got whatever the relationship is with your fans that you don't care about.
Pseudonymous and have a parasocial relationship. If you see that pop up in my LinkedIn feed or in my LinkedIn profile, I'm gonna just start to describe myself that way. I aspire to achieve pseudonymity and achieve a parasocial relationship with my fans and coworkers.
Did you see Top Gun?
Oh, here we go. Yes, I've seen Top Gun Maverick. I've watched the entire season of Stranger Things. Okay, no spoilers. I'll give you the 2-minute review. Very well done. I give it a 10 out of 10, a very high recommendation. I would say that it is as good, if not better. I would say it was better than the first movie, which, you know, is not hard to do when the movie has had 35 years to gestate. And of course, the special effects are better. The flight scenes that they shot, you know, the practical effects, go see it on the IMAX. You'll do yourself a favor. They did a really good job of writing it. They struck just the right chords of nostalgia without being cheesy. The story was good. But you'll walk away going, who is the bad guy? But that was intentional. Like, who are they fighting? They don't ever say, but they did that kind of purposely. And it was just the right amount of action, the right amount of like a little bit of romance, a little bit of like character interaction, like you cared about them. It's a good movie. It's a fantastic summer movie. Just what you want to see.
A reason to go back to the cinema and watch it on the big screen as opposed to sit and watch it in your living room.
100%. It is absolutely, unquestionably a movie you should not only see in the theater. And I will tell you, I am not one to spend extra money to see something on an IMAX theater. I never pay anything to see 3D because I think that's trash. But I will go see movies on IMAX I will go see a Christopher Nolan movie on an IMAX. And this movie is certainly, once you see the last 45 minutes of the movie, you'll be like, yeah, I'm glad I paid to see this on IMAX.
You are lucky to live in a place that has an IMAX cinema.
Is there none in Greece?
No, I don't think there's any in Athens, no. That was the thing I loved about living in Dubai. They had the best screens. They had
I can imagine.
Some seriously good screens in 3D screens, IMAX screens. If you haven't listened to it and you want to listen to Kara Swisher's Sway interview with the head of Skydance, who made the Top Gun movie, with it's
David Ellison, right?
Yeah.
Yep, I found it. Of course, Memorial Day, you got Top Gun, Obi-Wan Kenobi came out this weekend. That was really good. And then, of course, I will admit the pinnacle of all things, Stranger Things 4, which completely blew me away. And
I watched the final of Ozark. Didn't like it.
I told you you weren't going to like it. That last episode, we're not going to spoil it, but you were like, really?
Didn't like it. Didn't like it. I don't know.
Did you not like the entire season or just the last?
No, I thought the season was fine. I thought the wrong people won.
Fair enough. If it went the other way.
It was a morality tale. But it wasn't a feel-good morality tale. I tell you that. It was the wrong people died and the wrong people won.
Yep. I think you're right. I would have been satisfied with the ending that you expected, to be honest. You have Netflix. Watch Stranger Things 4 if you're a fan.
I think people are going to their brains are going to hurt a little bit after this episode.
But it's okay because sometimes you eat the bear, sometimes the bear eats you.
My brain hurts. So if my brain's hurting, then I'm thinking some of our listeners' brains are going to be hurting.